Hey, Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like we were saying, it's like just it's probably been since high school since we talked, and we were just saying 2008. I started to do the math, and I was like, my brain's not firing on all cylinders
That's
right
been
now, but
14 years.
14 years. There you go. Ooh, but hey, we're looking pretty good despite that, and life.
You have not changed. I mean, this right here is the most you've changed since I've seen you.
Right, right. It's hilarious because I don't think the goatee came in until my last year of college,
Mhm.
maybe. So
Yeah.
it's like those 23 years to just get this.
Hey, you're doing better than I am, brother. I don't. I'm so patchy. I shave. I can't
Yeah.
do it. I'll be
It's
terrible
it's
if I try to
it's
grow it.
it started to get patchy for me on the side, and I felt like one side wasn't coming in all the way. So I was like, just shave it. It's like what are we trying to do here? Even for my head, like it started to fade a little bit in the front, so I was like, just shave it. But it's like clean cut is good. I feel like that's how we grew up.
I mean, if you come when you can accept the fact that you're just like my brother, his
Hmm.
started going bad. He just shaved his off too. When you can
Yeah.
accept that fact, not hang on to it.
Oh no, no. The moment I think it was right around the time that I started this podcast, and I was in Dalton and just taking a break from work or just needing to like reset mentally. Like I went to a barber shop and I was feeling myself. I was kind of feeling good. I was like, oh man, took a selfie and was like, put it in a group chat. I was like, hey guys, check out this. And it's like, everybody's like, yeah, yeah, you look good. And then I looked back at it and I saw that my hairline was here, like
Oh
not
yeah.
too far off my forehead, but like it started on one side and then it just took off at a 90-degree angle. I was like, man, this guy messed me up. What's going on here? And then I started looking back at some other pictures, and it's like over the years, it either started receding or started thinning a little bit. And I was like, oh yeah, we're not we're we're not messing around here. Like let's
Mhm.
just cut our losses before it just you're trying to pass
Yeah,
off something to look good that isn't.
that's right. Yeah.
But a question I love to ask every guest, just to introduce you to the audience, is who do you say you are?
Who do I say that I am? First and foremost, I guess I identify as a Christian. First and foremost. Um, and it's not really until the last few years that I've grown up in the church, but being out on my own and being able to experience life with other people myself, not with my parents around, you don't really, you got to come into that on your own, and you got to come into who you are on your own without, I want to say without outside influence. You're always influenced by the outside, but you got to figure out who you are
Right.
on your own. And of course, went through that in college, to an extent. And then once I got out of college, I lived at home for, um, let's see, I graduated in 12. And then I bought this house, um, going on 2 years ago. And until then, I was living at home. So really, the last 2 years, I mean, I was kind of used to being on my own,
Hmm.
but I was still at home.
Yeah.
Um, I've actually been so I work for the DOT,
Mm. Nice.
and I'm a surveyor, and I'm actually statewide, so I travel a lot.
Nice.
So I've kind of been ish on my own, but until I really moved out, I wasn't really. I was still connected to home.
Right.
So and now that I've been living here by myself, you get a lot more of that. Um, you got your own responsibilities.
Hmm.
bills. You got house things to take care of, be mindful of. You got to mow
Yeah.
the yard. Um, you got to keep up with your vehicles. You know, all that kind of stuff that as you learn to do it on your own, and you're learning to between that and just doing life on your own,
Yeah.
you start coming into your own. And of course, me being in my 30s, some people can do that in their 20s, but it just takes everybody time. People, we do it in our own time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roundabout way of saying that.
That's pretty good. I like that because I mean for both of us it's kind of like different experience because for me I remember graduation 2008. I think we probably took a picture together. I might have it up on Facebook, and it's like you take a picture and like you throw your hat up in the air and you're just thinking like I'm free. It's like you're a friend of mine we said it's almost like you're getting out of jail even though
Mm-hmm.
you've never been in jail, but you just like been locked down for so long. And my whole notion was like go to school in Atlanta or in Marietta. So it's like going there and just being away from my parents for basically from that time. Like I would go home during the holidays, but like having older siblings, like four older siblings. I remember my oldest brother was just reminding me, it's like, hey, you want to leave and kind of stay away to build a little bit of that, like having your responsibilities, but still
Yeah.
to your point, it's like when you're in a college dorm, you're like, you're kind of in this bubble. And it's not until you get out and you start like traveling with work or you start
Mm-hmm.
having those experiences with other people outside of like the shelter of what you grew up with, then it's like, okay, did what I learned really matter? Like people start questioning your faith to that point. And like one person had me kind of, he asked me a simple question. He's like, so you're a Christian, right? And I was like, yeah. So like that means you're a follower of Christ? Yeah. It's like one of those like, I guess you'd say a leading question or something. And I forgot how it ended, which probably isn't the best way to tell a story, but the thing that it just got me to do was just kind of reflect on why it was I believe what I believe and not just continue to accept like, okay, my parents told me. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
that worked for a bit, but then when you actually have to do the work yourself, it's like, oh, okay, like this is challenging, but it's not impossible. And initially it was just like, the hell with it. But
Yeah.
even within like the last few years, it's um having something to fall back on or having something to lean on has been encouraging and kind of being like, oh, okay, like I don't have to know everything, but knowing that I have somewhere I can go to and just have resources that I can call on
Sure.
is a great thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, what
You have to you
go
have to
ahead.
ask yourself why, like going with your faith, you have to ask yourself, well, you get to a point, like you said, where it stops being what your parents taught you and it's become who you are. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, well, why do I still believe this in order to kind of carry that mantle and carry on with it. And and it's like my mom told me one time, we teach you to a certain point, and then it's up to you to decide if you're gonna carry on with it or not. And and that's the biggest thing about getting out on your own, and going through experiences, good or bad, indifferent. That when you come out on the other side, um, your parents prepare you for a lot of that stuff. They don't prepare you for everything. They try to,
Right.
but um, how you handle that can make or break the way you were raised, as far as how you view it in your mind. If if you experience a certain situation on your own that your parents help prepare you for, um, and you can kind of default to that, and it's when you come out on the other side of whatever, you realize that, hey man, they did pretty good preparing me for that. And same thing like with your faith. You experience, a lot of the guys I work with traveling, they're not the greatest. They stay up late drinking and partying and cuss like sailors and all that. And I'll hang out with them.
Yeah.
I don't have to drink with them or cuss with them, but they still appreciate the fact that I hang out with them. They know the way I am,
Yeah.
but it's given me the confidence to be able to hang out with them, but not feel pressured to be like them. Um, and that's one thing. That's one thing that's important, I think, for all of us is being able to have that confidence in ourselves to maintain and stand up for what we believe in.
Yeah. What was it like developing that confidence for you, especially like being out on your own for the first time or just like going through that college experience and work afterwards?
For me, it's kind of hard to get to that point because you want to be accepted by everybody. And I guess at first you feel like to be accepted, you got to fit in and you got to be like everybody else. Um, but when you know, or when you feel like what everybody else is doing is not right, but you still want to be accepted, um, then that's what bothers you. And over time, like for me, it bothered me the few times that I would falter in what I was trying to be versus what I was doing. Um, it would bother me enough to the fact that I knew I had to not follow along with the crowd. And, for a long time I did it. I would stick to my values and like hang out with the guys I'd work with or at school and not be drinking with them. And I was just kind of like not sure of myself. But it wasn't really until somebody told me one time, like, hey, man, you're a good example. And the fact that you hang with us, but even though you don't drink with us, you're still cool. And we appreciate that. And that's what, when I heard that, that was what really kind of gave me that boost. Like, you know, people notice. You don't have to always be following along with the crowd to be cool. You can still stand out, stick to your values,
Yeah.
and still be able to not, you know, yeah,
Yeah. You don't have to let everybody know like, hey guys, this is what I'm not gonna do. This is what I am gonna do. Here's
yeah,
my laundry list of everything that I do because it's like when you're doing what did they say? Like the easiest way not to look cool is to try to look cool or like acknowledge it in that sense, but like
exactly.
just developing that confidence and really being yourself and being comfortable in your own skin despite what your environment looks like or how other people are. It's like to your point, people appreciate that about you being really you. And it's
Mhm.
you might get a jab or two here or there, but it's I think people appreciate you more for being yourself and being willing to spend time around them rather than just be like um snooty or snobbish and just being like,
Yeah,
oh, you're not good or I'm too good to be with you guys, then it's like, oh, okay, so you're goody two shoes, right? So
exactly.
the moment you mess up, like we're gonna jump on you and just be like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
let's see how great you really are.
sure.
That's awesome. How'd you decide on working with the DOT Department of Transportation?
The funny thing is, so I went to Berry College and
Hmm.
I went 4 years. I got my Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. and I wanted to get more into some kind of like Department of Natural Resources kind of role.
Hmm.
But at the time that you and I graduated, about 12,
Yeah.
um, the economy was kind of in the pits,
Mm.
and the jobs were few and far between.
Yeah.
So with my degree, everybody was looking for either masters in environmental science
Hmm.
or 10 years of experience or X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And so I had none of that. I had a BS.
Yeah.
And so it took me 11 and a half months to get on with the DOT. And actually, my dad happened to be looking one day. I'd been to several interviews and I was either overqualified or not qualified enough. But my dad found the job. It was just for an entry level position on the survey crew out of Dalton. And I didn't even know what it was at first. It was the title was engineering technician, and I had no idea what that meant. Uh, it was one of those. It's like we kind of joke around now. You know, you got your list of job duties, and at the bottom is and other assigned duties. You never really know what you're going to get into, but
Yeah.
um, so I just kind of fell into it, and it really it was slow, kind of getting on my feet because being just fresh out of college, this I was getting in with a bunch of working guys that,
Hmm.
most of them didn't go to college. They had high school degrees and went right into working. So I was kind of the wet behind the ears, new new guy, trying to get on my feet working, and I was able to prove to them, and I've always been one. I always wanted to work outside anyway. Um, Pretty quickly that I didn't mind work and
Yeah.
enjoy it. No matter what I was making, I wasn't making that much money, but I was making money,
Yeah.
and that's what was important to me. So, um, I at least earned their respect that way. That they saw I was willing to get in with the rest of them, get dirty and sweaty and whatever else. And um, eventually I got to um, this position that opened up on the traveling crew. I was able to move up into that. And then from there, I've moved up some more. And now they've got me kind of working half in the office and half out of the office. And that has its ups and downs in and of itself. But
Yeah.
it's been a very rewarding working for the DOT. I know a lot of times the DOT gets kind of a bad rap, but you know, as one from the inside looking out, it's been a rewarding experience for me. I see a lot of the crap that goes on, sure, but there's a lot of good people that I work with that I've seen other jobs come up elsewhere in the private sector for more money, and
Hmm.
it's really hard to leave where I'm at just because I like who I work with,
Right.
and that's kind of between that and the freedom that I have as far as um, like I work 4 10s, we're on salary, 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
Thursday evening at 6 o'clock comes around and I'm done for the week. I don't have to worry about, whereas I know other companies, I'd probably be 80 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
It's been a rewarding experience being where I'm at, and I feel blessed for that.
That's awesome. It it's funny because when you talk about that, just that the difference of those hours, whether you're working the 40 hours, you're working 4 days a week versus 80 hours, 6 to 7 days a week, it's like those can be rough. And just like it's like, oh man, this is great because on the one hand, this is like you could be chasing the money, or on the other hand, you could be like enjoying your personal time.
Exactly.
And like that time is something you don't get back. And just being able to go through before, like I did a technical job before, like being a technician where we did in college working at paper mills and power plants. And like we worked all throughout like South Georgia, maybe sometimes we go to
Mhm.
Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, I think Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, maybe one time.
Yeah.
But like being on the road and like you're working turnarounds and that type of thing, like the guys that you work with, they always, despite the background, it's like they always respect that hard work and the willingness to like just get dirty and just do the job at the end of the day, because like that's what we're there for and like eventually. And it's like you, some days it'll suck or some days it's just like, man, this is rough. But like some of the jokes people come up with is like that's pretty good. That's hilarious. And just
Yeah.
seeing like that lighthearted nature that comes with that versus like maybe the more time you spend in the office, people might be a little bit more uptight or worrying about things that aren't as important. But
Hmm.
it's like, what's that balance been like for you? Like earning your stripes, moving up the ranks, and being able to do like half and half of your time now.
I definitely miss being out in the field. I can tell you that. Because I actually do most of my office work from home. They have us teleworking, and
Mhm.
which is good and bad. It's nice being at home, but then
Yeah,
again, I don't get to see anybody.
yeah,
I have to get out and just just to keep from going crazy. But
yeah.
um, and I think part of why sometimes it's a blessing and a curse, but I think part of why I've ended up where I'm at is having that college degree that I thought I'd never use. That's something that they've recognized, that and I see now. For the longest time, I used to preach, well, uh, I'm not using it. I'm not. It was useless. It was 4 years of my life I'll never get back. But I feel like in those 4 years, I learned a lot that has maybe I didn't think at the time, and until I got to a certain point, I didn't think I learned anything useful. But um, I realize, and I've come to realize here in the last few years that others recognize that when you put in that time, that you're willing to do a little bit more, I guess. To I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
You're willing to
you went
sacrifice a little bit, like you forego that immediate gratification a bit.
yeah, you went through those 4 years to get that piece of paper.
Hmm.
You put in some work there, so they recognize you're willing to do some work.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I really didn't think I'd get to where I'm at now. And in April, I'll have 10 years in. And, I've been supervisory and a little bit up in there already. And I never really thought I'd be up into that until I was at least in my 40s, and I'm in my early 30s. And that's been kind of weird. But at the same time, I think it's good to kind of dip your feet into that
Hmm.
a little bit at a time. And at least for me, it's not like I've had to put up with it's been just a few employees that I've been over, and they've been a good group for me to be supervising over. And you learn to earn their respect and not just expect it. And um, and then of course your supervisors see how you act with them.
Hmm.
It's all a big it. You never stop learning. It's all a learning experience,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, this thing called life.
You're not kidding. It's funny because just being around the same age, growing up together, going through from City Park, I think on through high school, literally being at City Park was like all fifth graders in one school. And then you have literally 8 years spent together growing up, being in the
Mm-hmm.
same classes, going through similar experiences and things like that. And it's it's cool catching up with you and being able to look back and see what we've come through and seeing that we kind of have the echoes of the same similar life experience. So it's like with everything that's gone on in the world, like pandemic, um,
Hmm.
moving around, working in Georgia, working outside of Georgia. Like for me, like right out of school, I went to Atlanta and then I spent about a year and a few months in the Midwest between Louisiana and around the Chicago area, Plainfield, Illinois. It was different. And like I was saying earlier about like understanding what the Southern accent is, it didn't even click for me that a Southern accent was a thing until I spent over a year in the Midwest. And then I come back to Georgia and I'm like, huh, I guess we do sound different. And then for me, being an immigrant, like, and just kind of
Hmm.
growing up with my parents, my mom that didn't completely speak English, but now she speaks better English. And like, oh, okay. Like, oh no, it wasn't even college. It was, I think there was we had a wrestling banquet and
Hmm.
my dad had come. And since they know that he's the pastor, he, they asked him to say grace. And as soon as he started praying, it was just having like that difference of knowing what my dad sounds like at home and knowing what people sound like at school and
Oh
having
yeah.
those two worlds kind of come together. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that's not your voice, is it? And I was like, am I crazy or what's going on here? But like,
And that's the funny thing. Like the guys that I work with on the statewide crew, they're
mm,
from all over the state. Some of them are
mm,
from South Georgia, and they even have a different accent than North
yeah,
Georgia and Middle Georgia. I mean,
yeah.
it's funny.
Like
And,
I'm in South Georgia now for the first time. I'm in Valdosta, like
oh yeah.
South Georgia, like almost in Florida. And
Hmm.
I'd never been to this part of Georgia aside from like that time in college, kind of going down to the different plants. But
Oh yeah.
it's yeah, it's funny how we're all a little bit different, but we're part of this big melting pot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And speaking of that, we something I never would have thought I did, but actually my mom kind of got me into it. We did the ancestry
Mm.
with the DNA,
Hmm.
and we actually got my dad to do it too, which was a miracle. But he was the last person I would have thought would have done it. But so we all did that, and just seeing where all we came from, across the pond, all the different countries, it shows you all the spread of what all you're made up of, and it's
Yeah.
amazing to see just all of the migrating that happened hundreds of years ago that brought us to where we are now.
Yeah.
It's
What'd you
amazing.
what'd you come up with?
I so a lot of mine is Eastern European. Um, I think I've got so much Russian. Don't hold that against me. I don't speak any. Um, I've got some Irish. I've got let's see, there were a lot of it was from the English Isles, United Kingdom, Ireland, Scotland, and all that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, a lot. It was mostly just Europe in general, and then the kind of Russia,
Yeah.
some of the Slavic states, um, that whole area. I don't think I had anything crazy.
Got you.
We thought we had some um, Native American somewhere in there, but that popped up zero. So,
Mm.
so that myth was busted.
What
So,
what's funny as we talk about like ancestry and we talk about like just different parts of Georgia, it makes me think of just the geography in general. And like I got a map of Georgia and I've been pinning on their different jobs that I go to. Like I'll drive out
mhm,
somewhere. Like I'm in geotech engineering now. I
yeah.
did the degree in civil and I started it out doing a bit in construction, went to like a fab shop, saw like, okay, this is how they fabricate stuff and they're going to ship it out
Oh
to this
yeah.
construction site in Georgia. And like I've spent 4 years on that construction project where they were shipping stuff to and seeing like, oh, this
Hmm.
is all the bad stuff that we did over. over here, and this is all the better stuff that they did. I think they shipped it in from Japan, and just seeing like the quality and the precision of that. But the reason I brought up just like geography of Georgia for that matter, and like seeing what's in your backyard, so to speak, versus like going to another state or another country or across the pond. It's like you hear things like England, the United Kingdom used interchangeably, and then once the same place that I got this map from, I think they're called Owl Maps. And
Mhm.
I just looked them up online and saw that they had different ones. They had like different continents on there, different countries, and they had like the United Kingdom on there. And I was like, oh, okay. So there's a reason why this piece of land has one name. It's like Ireland is over there. And I was like, I didn't know. Well, maybe I knew it, but it's been a long time since we took world history and geography, and it's like you
Mhm.
forget a lot of things, like unless you go back and like thumb through it.
That's right. Sometimes it takes somebody saying something or you seeing something for you to realize that you knew that. But
Yeah,
yeah, been there.
the world's a funny place, man. It's a funny
Oh yeah.
place.
Oh
What
yeah.
what of the what's been one of the best things you gained from like the last few years? Like you talked about being able to move out, being on your own now. Like, what's the experience been like?
The the independence of my dad, bless his heart, he's one of those that he wants to know even after I've moved out. Well, where are you at? What are you doing? He's a 20 question guy, and being able to tell him in a joking way, don't worry about it. And I sometimes I have to follow up with, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm here, or whatever."
Yeah,
He, he's not always in the mood to take that,
right.
um,
Because your
but
dad's
he,
military.
oh yeah, my dad was in the Air Force 4 years. He's still Mr. Drill Sergeant, but you gain that independence, and I feel like even my relationship with my folks has changed a little bit. There's a little less, I guess, of them being in a parental role, and they're more of a, I don't know what you call it.
Like a
They're,
coaching role, maybe,
yeah, kind
or
of like
consultant.
coaching. I was thinking like consultant kind of role, and we're more friendly with each other, as opposed to them berating me for doing
Yeah,
whatever stupid stuff I've done,
just
and
parenting like
yeah,
24/7 or helicopter
yeah,
parenting. I
exactly.
guess it's just like a switch that they can't ever turn off, but it is interesting seeing like that. It's almost like you have a professional work relationship with your parents. And you're like, oh, I am an adult. Like, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Hmm. And that's is weird, but it's kind of and I guess it's something we all transition to eventually. Um, and the older we get, the older they get, and then once we do have kids, and you see how they are with kids, happy to see them come and happy to see them go. I hear that all the time. But yeah, just gaining that independence, being able to kind of do my thing when I want to, and don't really have to answer to anybody. Doesn't mean I'm not responsible, of course. If y'all are watching, mom and dad, I am still responsible. But
He's not tearing up the town.
that's right. But yeah, it's and it's like I said earlier, we never stop learning, we never stop growing either, as far as as far as that kind of stuff goes. Um, you you get new opportunities and responsibilities in front of you, and you have to kind of keep adapting to all that kind of stuff to be able to keep up with it. And it's just something we keep having to learn to do.
Yeah. Have your parents been pressing you for grandkids? They're like, what's going on?
Well, which I'm still single, so they're trying to find me a wife first. But oh,
Right.
there's yeah, they're already. I hear it all the time. Well, whenever you get married and have kids, you'll be doing so and so, and they'll be coming up here and staying with us. And I'm like, well, great. I've got to find a wife first, so y'all be patient.
Right, right. I,
I
well,
get
it's
I get
funny
to
because
throw that patience thing back at them every now and then.
I love it. I, I just had to ask because, or I wanted to ask because just kind of going through that over the past few years and just having to answer in the same way and just navigate, learn, and just take the time to figure things out and not feel like you just got to be rush, 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 press, press. But like,
Hmm.
it's nice to be at this phase. Like some people start early and they figure it out and they get along, but it's kind of understanding my demeanor and seeing that like it's not it's not unreasonable, so to speak, because before I was like, I don't have anything against kids, and I don't know. Like that's kind of how I started out, and then kind of going through college and getting to know different people and being like, oh, okay, like you have different people from like different
Hmm.
parts of Georgia, from different parts of the world. It's like, oh, like there might be hope for me just yet, and
Sure.
like and just in developing that self confidence and like whether it's in myself or being able to develop that skill to be like, oh, okay, like I can be good at this. Like I'm strong mentally, spiritually,
Hmm.
emotionally, get myself together. And like as the world turns, so to speak, it's like tomorrow's a new day and we see what it brings with itself. And
Hmm.
we can make plans from time to time to do this or do that. But it's good to see you enjoying life on your end and on your terms.
That's what more can we ask for?
Yeah. You got any
So,
questions for me?
what are you doing in Valdosta?
Well, funny you ask because this time last year, a buddy of mine from college, we roomed together
Hmm.
and like I started out at Southern Poly, then transferred to Georgia Tech. And I was just calling to reach out to him, wish him happy birthday. And he was like, hey, are you, what are you getting into now? Like I might need help down this way. We've got a lot of work going on.
Hmm.
And I was like, sure, I'm open to it. So went through the interview process and all that. They gave me the position to do geotech work or soils work. Essentially, you could say you get paid to play in the dirt and basically doing soil explorations, pre-construction for a lot of like transmission lines, restaurants, hospitals, just general buildings and things like that. So that's what I've been up to the past 7 or 8 months.
Pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes to that same thing that you were talking about, like just being around good people, hardworking
Hmm.
people that are very respectful and like being able to split the time from in the office to out in the field. Like I went to this job in Alabama middle of last week, and I think I spent the better part of a day there. And I was just walking around, marking areas that we were going to explore and dig and see what we can find. And it was interesting because it it gives me that forecasting vision to see what some place will look like. It's supposed to be an apartment
Hmm.
complex. You get to see it when it's just wooded over. And then as I was kind of like walking around, I saw somebody had a tent pitched up in the middle of the woods. And I was like, I'm not going over there. Like I called in, let my supervisor know and just be like, hey, just a heads up, like these three spots aren't going to be located just yet. But walking around like wearing snake guards for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
going through briar patches and things like that. I'm like, I don't think I've been outside in a while. Like I haven't been in scouts since maybe middle school or like freshman
Mm-hmm.
year of high school, but like you getting used to using um things for outside, like you're driving the truck or whatnot, you kind of post up and like, okay, this is where I'm gonna go. Like you're using a GPS locator, like doing practical things where I'm like, okay, half of it might be physical. I'm gonna have to walk out there physically, but the other half is like mental. Like I'm actually using my engineering degree on the back end where it's
Mm-hmm.
you're doing calculations to see how much stress the ground can hold or support. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But like you kind of get fed piecemeal work, so to speak. It's like, okay, we'll start you here. This is the strata of soil. This is we have a lot of clay in Georgia, and it's like if you're north of Macon, you have a certain type of soil. If you're south of
Mm-hmm.
Macon, like the soil is really sandy and stuff
Yep.
like that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's been the fun I've been up to, just hanging out in South Georgia, doing a bit of
Oh yeah.
traveling and seeing what I can see along the way.
Have you had anything to do with so we've had to deal with especially with a lot of the rain, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the roads washing out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of Sandersville, Georgia, which is out. I'm trying to think. If you go out east from Atlanta, out 20, you go at
Mm-hmm.
about an hour, and then you get off I-20, and then you go south for about an hour. And it's kind of just out in the middle of nowhere. But the Fall Line Freeway, which goes, I think, from south of Macon, and
Mm-hmm.
it goes out towards Augusta. But at one point, um, I think it's on the west side of Sandersville,
Mm-hmm.
a large section of the road where they apparently didn't do the compaction right for the
Mm-hmm.
dirt.
Yeah.
Large section of road fell out.
Ooh.
And we had to go out there and survey it and monitor it because evidently it was still shifting, and we've had to go several places for that kind of thing
Right.
where the roads washed out and been some compaction issues, but uh, we've had to deal a lot with that.
Mm. I haven't had to do much of that. I think there's a part of our group that deals with roadways, but a lot of what we usually end up doing is a lot of like building construction or
Mm-hmm.
transmission line construction.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I guess I don't know if I've been thinking of a way of kind of explaining engineering to people, or I don't know how you really educate people on it, like in being able to talk to you and seeing that like you're with the DOT. It's like could you explain what you do being a part of the DOT like now and maybe like when you started?
Which a lot of what I do now is very similar to because I'm pretty much in the same department. So we're actually like
Mm,
pre-construction.
mm,
So when we do a survey, it may be for a new project or it may be something for like an existing roadway that they want to widen or do intersection improvements or add turning lanes or anything like that. Or it may be where they're wanting to build a bypass to go around a small town or something. But so we're basically the first eyes on the ground guys that get out there and whatever the scope of the project is, we're getting out there and we're actually doing the survey, the topographical survey of whatever's there, wherever they want it done, um, for them to be able to design whatever project off of.
right.
Um, so that's and being able to see some of the stuff that I've been in on survey wise, being able to see them go through the phases and get to the point where it's actually built,
Hmm.
it's been pretty cool
Yeah.
seeing stuff change. Um, we deal a lot with um, private contractors that survey for us too.
Hmm.
So kind of what I've transitioned into now is um, we have a field crew that will go out and check their work, and then they'll send that data back to me. And I have a coworker. We do the
Hmm.
same thing.
Gotcha.
So we check their work on the computer
Right.
and basically give them a yay or an A.
Mm.
And if they have to fix something, they'll go back and fix it or whatever. But so every
Yeah.
now and then I get to get out and go do some of the field checking myself. Or so sometimes too, we'll do property surveys
Hmm.
for our own property. The state owns a lot of property, and sometimes we'll sell it off. So we'll get out and go do a property survey for that.
Mm.
Um, but that's basically um, just a lot of surveying.
Yeah.
Uh,
It,
we've tried to transition into using drones.
mm.
Um, there's a lot of companies that use them,
Hmm.
and so we've been trying to get in on it. So I've got my pilot's license to be able to fly, and we've flown some stuff, but it hasn't. We haven't quite gotten it to the detail that we want that to actually be able to design any kind of project off of. But
Right.
we are trying to get there.
That's
So that's
pretty
been
cool.
it's been cool, but it's also been frustrating just because it keeps coming up
Hmm.
like it doesn't work, but y'all make it work.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make it work, but but it is pretty cool seeing this big, 4 foot drone taking off in the air, sounding like a small helicopter, and
Jeez, I
just
didn't know they
hoping
made them that big. But I
it.
guess
This is
to
a
do
yeah,
everything that you needed to do, it's got to be pretty
yeah.
heavy duty.
It's I think altogether it weighs 30 something pounds, 33 or 4 pounds.
Mm.
It takes 6 batteries at one time. And then it's got this big, so we use LiDAR for
Mm.
scanning.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's got a pretty good sized LiDAR unit that goes on the bottom of it.
Hmm.
So it's got to be able to lift all that, all its equipment, batteries, and all that stuff. And it flies for about 20 minutes. So yeah, she's a pretty girthy girl
Yeah.
up in the air. But so far it's been pretty neat,
Yeah.
um, getting to be a part of that. I was asked to be a part of it, and I was
Hmm.
like, sure, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So uh,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
that kind of thing. Yeah, it's been rewarding for there and again, just being able to be a part of different stuff that and being able to show people that you're willing to do that kind of thing is always going to be a rewarding for you.
Yeah.
Show people that you can put in the hard work. Um, that's
Yeah.
always work out for the better.
That's true. And the thing I like about that, to your point, it's like the surveyors would be out there around the same time that we are, or a little bit earlier, because it's like in doing like the soil exploration, uh, you need to know a sense of like what the profile of the ground
Mm-hmm.
looks like. So it's like if it's higher in elevation one area than another area, like that significance you need to know, because it's like if the final elevation is supposed to be like 5 or 10 feet different than where it's at now, and you only dig down 10 feet, like you don't really get any information about where the level at
Mm-hmm.
which you're actually going to be at. And
Yeah.
it's what's interesting about that, and like seeing surveyors out on a roadway and getting that difference versus like working with surveyors at the nuclear plant I worked at for 4 years, which was just they did a lot of location on the plant, but then they had to do a lot of location inside the nuclear island. So like
Mm-hmm.
referencing, okay, this needs to go over here on this wall and this needs to go over there and it needs to be within this tolerance. And just remembering like, okay, when you like the very basics of engineering has always been like you draw a free body diagram where you represent your work. So it's like you've got to constantly document what it is that you're doing so that if anything comes into question, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, it's here in my field book and it's
Mm-hmm.
there. And just having like a technology of a field book to be something where you can write in it in the rain, or you can write it in pencil. And like somebody thought, hey, like let's make sure that this doesn't just get destroyed if you happen to be out in the elements, because a lot of times you will be like just out
Oh
there
yeah.
having to deal with all that stuff. But that's pretty neat.
Mhm.
I think you did a great job explaining that.
Thanks.
But not to keep you too long, I'll ask you one last question to kind of
Mhm.
wrap up. And it ties back into the first question I asked you. Are you still who you said you were?
Am I still who I said I was? Well, I hope so. I try to always, sometimes you have to remind yourself who you are when you get around anybody. Um, so I try to always, anywhere I'm at in life, I always, and that's something I think the more you do, the more it just gets to be, um, just instinct or, just doing stuff without thinking about it. Um, as far as acting like like who I said I am. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. The more I practice that and mean it, and knowing who I am in that aspect, the more it just comes in second nature. Um, and that's something, I think that's something, like we were talking about, having the confidence in yourself to know who you are and feel comfortable being who you are around other people. And the more you can do that, and it does become second nature, that that you don't have to pretend to be somebody you're not, or you can just be yourself and it just comes naturally. And like you said, people see that and respect that whenever they see you're being who you are and not trying to be somebody else. um and so yes, I try to still be who I am, and try to do it as often as I can, so that it does become my first nature, even just instinct. Um, so I try to do the best I can with that. I'm not perfect. I fail just like everybody else does, but
Mhm.
I do the best I can with it. Pick myself up. I try not to focus on my failures, um, but we just do the best we can with it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Well, hey man, I appreciate the opportunity, and
Yes, sir.
it's been good talking to you. It's been a while, like I said.
Likewise. It's funny that we end up in almost the same field, so to speak, but
Yeah.
just being able to work kind of where you grew up and around the area, and being like, oh, okay, like the people that came before me took care of this place. Let me do my best to take care of what's
Hmm.
here, and then get it ready for the kids that are coming up, like our nieces and nephews that they'll visit, they'll live here maybe, and just be like, hey, like so and so took care of it. Let me do my part too.
That's right. We just pass the torch.
Yeah.